The Russia-Ukraine war has captured global attention, not only for its geopolitical stakes, but also for its profound impact on the modern international order. To understand its significance, one must contextualize it within the broader framework of contemporary conflicts. Comparing the war to other major military engagements of the 21st century, such as the Iraq War, the Syrian Civil War, and the Afghanistan conflict, reveals both unique characteristics and shared patterns. Each modern conflict is shaped by the political ambitions and historical tensions underlying its eruption. The Russia-Ukraine war, like others before it, stems from a deep-rooted geopolitical struggle. Russia's actions in Ukraine reflect a broader ambition to reassert influence over its neighboring territories, a goal that harks back to Soviet-era dominance and Russian imperialism. The annexation of Crimea in 2014 and the subsequent support for separatist movements in eastern Ukraine marked early phases of this broader confrontation. In contrast, the United States-led invasions of Iraq in 2003 and Afghanistan in 2001 were driven by distinct motivations. The former framed as a preemptive strike to prevent the proliferation of weapons of mass destruction, later disproven, and the latter as a direct response to the 9/11 terrorist attacks. The Syrian Civil War, on the other hand, emerged from internal dissent against authoritarian rule, eventually spiraling into a proxy war influenced by external powers. What distinguishes the Russia-Ukraine war is its existential nature for Ukraine, as it battles not only for territorial integrity, but also for its sovereignty and identity. While Iraq and Afghanistan were theaters of foreign intervention, Ukraine is fighting on its home soil against a neighboring power, making the stakes deeply personal and visceral for its people. The military strategies employed in the Russia-Ukraine war showcase both modern and traditional elements of warfare. Russia's initial invasion in 2022 aimed for a swift decapitation of Ukraine's government, an approach reminiscent of the US shock and awe strategy during the Iraq War. However, the protracted nature of the conflict and Ukraine's resilient defense echo parallels with Afghanistan, where insurgencies prolonged the engagement far beyond initial expectations. One defining feature of the Russia-Ukraine war is the extensive use of drones, precision-guided munitions, and cyber warfare. These technologies have transformed the battlefield, enabling Ukraine to offset Russia's numerical and material superiority. Comparatively, the US leveraged drone strikes extensively in Afghanistan and Iraq, but those operations often involved asymmetrical engagements against non-state actors rather than a state-backed military force. Additionally, the urban warfare seen in cities like Mariupol and Bakhmut mirrors battles in Aleppo and Mosul, where densely populated areas became epicenters of destruction. In all these cases, civilian casualties and infrastructural devastation have underscored the human cost of modern warfare. The Russia-Ukraine war has triggered a dramatic realignment of international alliances, reminiscent of other major conflicts. The NATO alliance, previously strained by internal divisions, has experienced renewed cohesion, with countries like Finland and Sweden moving toward membership. This revitalization contrasts with the Iraq War era, when disagreements over intervention strained transatlantic relations. In the Middle East, the Syrian Civil War and the Iraq War both drew in a mosaic of regional and global actors, leading to shifting coalitions and rivalries. Similarly, the Russia-Ukraine war has seen external involvement, with Western nations supplying Ukraine with arms and intelligence, while Russia strengthens ties with China, Iran, and other non-Western powers. The global sanctions regime against Russia also resembles the economic isolation faced by nations like Iraq and Iran during their respective conflicts. Unlike the War on Terror, which sought to combat non-state actors, the Russia-Ukraine war challenges the post-Cold War international order by reviving state-on-state aggression. This shift has reignited debates over global security frameworks and the role of institutions like the United Nations in addressing conflicts between major powers. Wars invariably leave deep economic scars and humanitarian crises. The Russia-Ukraine war has disrupted global supply chains, particularly for energy and agricultural products. Russia's role as a major exporter of oil and gas, combined with Ukraine's importance as a breadbasket for the world, has created ripple effects that far surpass regional boundaries. Rising food and energy prices have exacerbated inflation worldwide, drawing comparisons to the oil shocks of the 1970s. Similarly, the Iraq War destabilized global oil markets, while the Syrian civil war contributed to the European migration crisis. Afghanistan's prolonged conflict devastated local economies, leaving millions dependent on international aid. In the case of the Russia-Ukraine war, millions of refugees have fled Ukraine, straining the resources of neighboring European countries and reshaping migration policies across the continent. The scale of economic warfare in the Russia-Ukraine conflict also stands out. Sanctions on Russia, targeting its banking system, oligarchs, and industries, represent one of the most comprehensive economic campaigns in modern history. While sanctions were also deployed against Iraq and Iran, their implementation against a global power like Russia underscores the unique stakes of this conflict. Modern conflicts are fought not only on battlefields, but also in the realm of public perception. The Russia-Ukraine war has highlighted the critical role of media and information warfare, with both sides leveraging propaganda, social media, and state-controlled narratives to shape domestic and international opinion. Ukraine's adept use of social media to rally global support contrasts starkly with the US government's struggle to justify the Iraq war to an increasingly skeptical public. The Syrian civil war, too, demonstrated how information could be weaponized, with competing factions disseminating conflicting accounts to gain international sympathy or discredit adversaries. Russia's disinformation campaigns, aimed at undermining Western unity and justifying its actions domestically, echo strategies employed during the Cold War. However, the speed and reach of digital platforms have amplified their impact, making information a central battleground in ways unseen in earlier conflicts. Every conflict leaves a lasting legacy, reshaping nations and the global order. The Iraq and Afghanistan wars profoundly influenced US foreign policy, contributing to a growing wariness of military intervention and a pivot toward domestic priorities. Similarly, the Syrian civil war left an enduring mark on the Middle East, entrenching regional rivalries and altering migration patterns. The Russia-Ukraine war's long-term implications remain uncertain, but could redefine the balance of power in Europe and beyond. Ukraine's resistance has galvanized democratic nations, reinforcing the value of collective security. At the same time, Russia's actions have exposed vulnerabilities in global governance structures, raising questions about the enforcement of international norms. The conflict also underscores the fragility of economic interdependence. The disruption of trade and energy flows has prompted nations to reassess supply chain resilience and reduce reliance on adversarial powers. This shift toward economic decoupling may echo the Cold War era, where ideological divisions shaped economic relationships. Comparing the Russia-Ukraine war to other modern conflicts reveals both shared patterns and unique dynamics. While it echoes the geopolitical ambitions, economic upheavals, and human tragedies of past wars, it also stands apart as a conflict that challenges the foundational assumptions of the post-Cold War era. By examining these parallels and distinctions, we gain a deeper understanding of the war's significance and the broader lessons it offers for navigating a turbulent global landscape.